So I would like to present Miss Hana Wilke on the topic of candy.
Okay. Who here likes candy? Of course. I know I do. Hi, I'm Hana Wilke, and this is a sweet topic. I have always loved candy. It all started when I was 3 months old, and my grandma decided to give me my first taste of solid food, chocolate mousse. My unconditional love for sweets has only grown over the last 15 years. When trying to pick my Masterworks topic, I jokingly mentioned I wanted to do it on candy, and the more I thought about it, the more I wanted to do it. You probably know how good candy tastes, but how much do you actually know about it? Do you know why Snickers are called Snickers, or what Hershey bars have to do with World War II? Be prepared to answer some questions throughout my presentation. I'm going to show you that candy is more than just flavor. You will see how amazing candy is and how it's greatly impacted our history and our culture. First of all, you need to know why we love candy. The obvious answer is sugar. We crave sugar from the moment we're born. Taste buds on our tongues send signals to the brain to release dopamine, giving us a feeling of reward. So the more we eat it, the more we crave it. Our bodies need sugar to give us the necessary energy for life. We also need fat and salt. These ingredients, fat, salt, and sugar, are what give candy bars their hyperpalatability, or extreme yumminess. Now, think of the Snickers bar, the best-selling candy bar ever. It has lots of sugar, salty peanuts, sweet, gooey caramel, and fatty nougat covered in mouth-watering chocolate. It's the perfect combination. Okay, can anyone guess why the Snickers bar is called Snickers? Twyla?
There's a family that invented Snickers favorites.
Exactly, yes. The Mars family named it after their favorite horse. The chocolate found in candy also makes us feel great. Cocoa flavonoids produce chemicals in the brain to promote feelings of happiness, lift depression, and even make us feel like we're falling in love. But I've discovered that it's not just chocolate and sugar in your favorite candy that makes you love it so much. While talking with my family, I found that, talking with my family about their favorite candy, I realized that they associated certain candies with a fond memory. Memories are strongly attached to your sense of smell, and thus taste. The happy memories just make that candy taste even better. My aunt's favorite candy is sugar babies. She remembers skiing with friends. And my grandma loves sugar cane. She remembers picking and eating it outside of her childhood door on the tropical island of St. Kitts. For me, some of my strongest memories are attached to the Snickers bar. Whenever my family goes skiing, camping, or hiking, we always make sure to pack them. Eating them now brings me sweet taste, sweet energy, and sweet memories. Okay, now everybody close your eyes and picture your favorite candy. Now think about why you really like that candy. Is there a memory attached to it? It might be hard to make the connection at first, but it's there. Okay, you can open your eyes. That's why certain candies have been long attached to events and holidays. Candies become a symbol of those happy times. The earliest known sweets were made up of nuts, seeds, and dried fruit covered in honey. Since sugar at first wasn't cheap and available, the first candies were enjoyed only by the very rich and royalty. To please his harem, the Sultan of Turkey told his royal chef to make something new. And in 1777, the chef created Turkish Delight. This is one of the oldest candies still in existence today. As sugar became cheaper, sweets became more available. Sugar had been used for centuries for medicinal purposes, soothing sore throats and coughs, calming the stomach, and even teething. It also had been used to disguise the bitter taste of medicines. It wasn't until 1845 that an American pharmacist, Oliver Chase, started producing medicinal lozenges by mixing sugar with menthol and even cocaine, and adding colors and flavors like licorice, clove, and wintergreen. The lozenges became so popular that Oliver Chase took out the medicinal ingredients and just sold them as candies. He originally only made one drop at a time, but as they gained popularity, he couldn't make them fast enough. So, in 1847, he invented the first hand-cranked candy machine. He didn't realize it then, but his automated machine kickstarted the American candy industry. His candies are still available today and are known as Necco wafers. Okay, does anyone know why lemon drops and cough drops are called drops? Liliana?
Drop the stuff and it makes
So a worker, close, very close actually. So a worker feeds sugar through a press, creating long sheets of candy. There's a thin layer in between each candy. And after it cools, a worker will pick up the sheets, and drop them, causing the pieces to break apart. Hence the name drop. In the mid-1800s, many candies were made to reflect the common American foods at the time. Candies came in shapes and colors of carrots, chestnuts, turnips, and even beans. That's why jelly beans were created. With the American Civil War, alcohol rations were no longer permitted to soldiers, so they started carrying candy as their vice. In 1865, the first jelly beans were invented and sent to Union soldiers. Many more candies were invented at the end of the 19th through to the beginning of the 20th century. Mostly they were penny candies, and they were sold by the piece from glass jars. But in 1896, something new was invented. It would change candy in the lives of American people forever. The Tootsie Roll. Does anybody know how the Tootsie Roll changed the American life candy? Felipe.
It was really popular, and everyone started eating it.
Not quite. Mateus.
Was this the first packaged candy?
Yes, it was the first candy to come in a wrapper. This was big, very big, because candy was now portable. In an age before refrigeration, having food that was portable, didn't spoil, and would provide quick energy and tasted great changed the way Americans ate. This made candy even more popular. Other candies then followed suit. In 1904, Hershey was the first chocolate bar to come with a wrapper. All this portable wrapped candy was especially important to World War I, when World War I began in 1914. With soldiers traveling to oceans across the ocean, food that didn't spoil and provided quick energy was in demand. And yes, that does say the Ministry of Sweets. Candy bars also boosted morale with sweet thoughts of home. Candy during the war was also used as a universal language between cultures. Soldiers would use candy as a friendly way of communicating with other soldiers and civilians, no matter what the language they spoke. For the first time, soldiers were given candy rations, which included Goo clusters, Tootsie Rolls, Lifesavers, Hershey bars, and more. War inspired mass production of candy as manufacturing methods developed. The candy industry exploded with growth. Literally thousands of candy bars and candies were invented during this time, and many are still known today. Do you recognize any of these?
Yeah.
Okay, does anyone know why Milk Duds, where the name Milk Duds comes from? Yeah. Exactly. The inventor couldn't figure out how to make them round, so he called them duds because of their imperfection. Okay, with their calories and energy-producing qualities, candy bars were marketed as a portable and healthy meal replacement. Look at Hershey's chocolate slogan was at the time, more sustaining than meat. There were even candy bars with names like Denver Sandwich and Chicken Dinner. Interestingly, candy bars were very popular in the US, but not in England. This is because Americans, with their indifference to tradition, loved the idea of eating on the go. But the British were still tied to their traditions of eating meals properly at home. In the US, the candy industry advertised that candy had health benefits, and the claims were even supported by doctors. It was also said to be a weight-reducing food. In 1928, the National Confectioners Association put out an ad saying, "Do you eat enough candy?" and "Candy is a food." They proposed that candy should be the 5th food group. It was suggested that each family member eat 1 pound of candy each week. 1928 was a really good year. You might think that this was all made up by the American candy industry, but the author of this idea was actually the president of the Health Association. Candy wasn't always so welcome to the American people. In 1920, the Christian Temperance Union saw candy as another temptation that should be outlawed along with alcohol. Luckily, it wasn't. During the Prohibition years of 1920 to 1933, when alcohol was illegal in the United States, candy production actually peaked as more people replaced their drinking habits with candy. When beer producers like Schlitz and Anheuser-Busch, who at the time made beer with 25% corn, suddenly had a lot of corn syrup on their hands. They had a great idea: sell corn syrup to candy companies as another sweetener. This made sense because corn syrup was cheaper than sugar, didn't crystallize, and there was a lot of accessible corn. This is how the days of corn syrup-filled candies began. Then came World War II. From 1942 to 1945, 1/4 of candy manufactured in the US was sent to troops as candy rations. Apparently, the US government was well aware of the power of candy on the troops in tough times of war. Once again, the Hershey Company was asked to supply chocolate bars to the troops. Hershey created K-rations, or the tropical chocolate bar. It would melt at a higher temperature and could withstand being held in a soldier's pockets. These are still sent to American troops today. D-ration Hershey bars, though, were for emergency food only, and again needed to withstand high temperatures, but also needed to be packed with calories. They were designed to taste a little better than a boiled potato, and didn't even melt but crumbled in soldiers' mouths. The soldiers even referred to them as Hitler's revenge, as the after effects of eating these D-ration bars were just as the name implies. After the war, the Hershey Company was even commended by the US government for playing an important role in the war effort. Hershey was not the only American candy company to cash in on the war effort. In 1941, M&Ms were invented by Forrest Mars of Mars Candies and Bruce Murray, the son of the president of the Hershey Company at the time. So M&M stands for Mars and Murray, or Murray and Mars, whichever one you prefer. They combined the resources of chocolate from Hershey and sugar from Mars to corner the candy industry. Their slogan, "Melts in your mouth, not in your hands," gives a hint as to why they were sent to soldiers during the war. Anybody want to take a guess? Joel?
Because they didn't melt when you were holding them or have them in your pocket?
Exactly, yes. It made M&Ms much easier to transport, and soldiers could eat them without a huge mess. M&Ms were only available to the soldiers during the war. They were only made to the public after the soldiers returned home. M&Ms are now the most popular candy in history and are still the #1 candy in the world today, with $3.6 billion worth sold every year. Candy actually played a big role in the aftermath of World War II. The Candy Bomber is a beautiful story that shows the powerful influence of candy.
Whenever Americans get a warm reception in Berlin, whether it's President Kennedy, President Reagan, or presidential hopeful Barack Obama, they owe a debt of gratitude to an American pilot who started doing something 60 years ago this week that won the heart of that city. It was July 1948, 3 years after the end of World War II, and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin was making a grab for Eastern Europe.
West Berlin, an island of freedom in the Red Sea, was in his way.
Berlin stood divided between East and West, so the Soviets cut off land supply lines to the 2.25 million West Berliners. The Allies decided on an airlift. American pilots began flying tons of flour, milk, meat, even coal to desperate Berliners. And 27-year-old Hal Halverson was one of those pilots. He noticed children standing behind barbed wire at the end of the runway. These are his own home movies.
And then I realized suddenly that not one of those 30 kids had put out their hand and said, "You got any chocolate?"
He gave the kids a stick of gum.
But these kids were so grateful, I had to do something.
Hal didn't ask anyone's permission. He then started fashioning tiny parachutes out of handkerchiefs and tied candy to each one. But he had to get the attention of the children on the ground below.
I'll wiggle the wings of that big airplane.
Those wing wiggles became Hal's trademark. He dropped dozens of tiny parachutes, and grateful German children spread the word about their former enemies, the Americans, and what they were doing.
They fell in love with America, and they went home and convinced their parents.
And the candy bar, that was a symbol of hope.
Then other pilots joined in, and the candy bombing went on until the airlift ended in 1949. Americans from home were sending lots of candy and handkerchiefs. All told, America's legions of candy bombers dropped about 250,000 tiny parachutes over Berlin and millions of pounds of candy.
Candy, the universal language of happiness and friendship, provided hope to the people of West Berlin. It was such a dark moment in their history, and candy was a beam of light that guided them through the tough times. Candy helped bridge a friendship between former enemies, the US and Germany. Candy is a powerful thing. Today, candy is recognized as a treat that should be eaten in moderation. Interestingly enough, today's candy industries are again attempting to make candy more like a food than a treat by adding vitamins and healthier ingredients, like health bars, energy bars, and granola bars. Once more, candy is making its way back to its rightful place as a food group. American candy has greatly influenced not only the United States, but other countries as well. In contrast, I found that the Japanese candy culture is very unique. I've discovered some very interesting candies, with flavors like soy sauce, baked potato, bean curd, wasabi, green tea, melon, and seafood flavors. I also found do-it-yourself candy kits. They are advertised as for people who want to work a little for their candy. This is only one of the many DIY candy kits that you can make on your own. There are others like a box of donuts, realistically flavored burger and fries, and my personal favorite, cute little real tasting octopus balls. These DIY kits definitely reflect the culture of Japan, and like in the US, they bring happiness. There's also a bit of friendly candy competition in Japan. Each region proudly creates novelty flavors, reflecting their own mini culture. They sell these specialty flavors for a short period of time to create excitement. This satisfies the Japanese culture's love of the next best thing. The candy bar Kit Kat is probably the best example of this in Japan. The Swiss company Nestle actually produces over 400 different flavors of Kit Kats, just for the Japanese market. Kit Kats are considered a lucky gift to give to students at exam time, because the red packaging has always been a color of good luck, and because the name Kit Kat has been adapted to an abbreviation for Kitu Katsu, meaning a sure win. A big part of candy culture in Japan is called omiyaji. Omiyaji is when you bring back a gift, sometimes candy, to share after returning home from a trip. These gifts often are in thanks to coworkers or family for assuming your responsibilities while you were away. It's actually sometimes considered an insult to return home without omiyaji. Omiyaji candies must reflect the place you visited and must be beautifully wrapped and easy to share. Japanese candy is a very unique blend of the Japanese culture. After looking into Japanese candy, I wanted to make candy that represented Bowen Island's culture. Sarah Haxby, one of my advisors, helped me develop an idea for Bowen Island themed candies. Can anyone guess what symbol we chose? Drake?
A deer.
Nope. Jack? No. Rowan? Yes, a slug, exactly. The slug, of course, as a mascot of Bowen Island and Bowfest for over 40 years, and even a crosswalk design. The banana slug was the perfect choice for a candy. These white and milk chocolate candies are slug-like in appearance, authentically gooey on the inside, and even banana flavored. I think they are the perfect representation of Bowen Island, since they represent life in the slow lane. In conclusion, candy's impact on the world is far-reaching. It has shaped history and been shaped by historical events and the ingenuity of human desire. Candy is a big part of culture, and its hyper-palatability makes it appealing, makes it enjoyable to everyone. I think candy should be appreciated and celebrated. Studying candy has been a pretty sweet experience. But I wouldn't have been able to do it without the help of my very patient and supportive advisors, Chelsea Luchensky, Sarah Haxby, Jan Chilvers, Jen Zadrill, and of course, my parents. Thank you all so much for getting me through this school year. And thank you guys for being such a wonderful audience.
I would like to present to you as the audience that Hana Wilke has met all the requirements of the Masterworks component.